I'm Tori.
And I'm Sunil. I'm a product manager on Actions on Google.
I'm a partner technology manager working on Actions on Google.
When we first built this session, we said it was 10 tips for building better actions. Well, when we previewed this talk, the feedback we universally got was more tips. So we're adding 2 more tips.
I'm really excited to be working on Actions in Google because I see this as a next step in the evolution of computer interactions. I remember the first time I typed in a web search and received the list of blue links. It opened up a whole new world of exploration. I also remember when I became fully dependent on my mobile phone, checking directions, the weather, finding friends in a crowd. It really changed the way I lived. And now, with the Assistant and Actions on Google, I'm really excited to see how conversational dialogues really change the way we interact with computers.
And to the text in the back, we lost the monitors up here, so if you can fix that, please. So we want to take us to this next evolution in computing. We are offering the Actions on Google platform. And we're here to show you not only how to be part of the next evolution, but to excel at it. Actions on Google is the developer platform for the Google Assistant. With it, you can provide your products and services via the Assistant. With over 500 million devices running the Assistant, there's a great opportunity for you. We're not here to tell you how to build an action for an assistant from scratch. There are other sessions at I/O covering that. We're here to give you the top 12 tips that all of you can use to build great actions. And when you build great actions, not only do you delight your users, but it opens the doors to get your actions noticed. Throughout this talk, we're going to be mentioning 2 tools. First, the Actions on Google console, or sometimes affectionately known as the console. This is where you create and administer your actions. Second, Dialogflow. This is where you build your conversational actions, and includes a lot of the natural language capabilities that are essential for making great actions. Let's dive in. We've bucketed the tips into 3 categories. First, design. This is how you make a great action and avoid some of the common mistakes. Second, enhance. This is how you can make your action stand out. And third, grow. This is how you can get your action to more users.
Having a good design is what delights users. Let's start with 4 common mistakes and solutions to make a great design. Tip 1, make your conversation as simple as possible, but no simpler. Do you know someone who talks too much? Well, an action can too. When users interact, keep it simple. Users don't need every option up front. Guide them to the most used portion, and then make options available if they asked. Now, we're going to act out a conversation. Sunil will be playing the exciting role of an action, and I'll be the user.
Welcome to Sounds of Relaxation. Are you trying to sleep, meditate, cool down, think, or reflect?
Reflect.
Great. We have something for that. Would you like to also include ocean waves, crackling fire, wind blowing, or birds chirping with that?
Sure, birds.
Do you want this for 5 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour?
30 minutes.
Find a nice place to sit or lie down. Are you ready?
Yes.
OK, here's your 30-minute relaxation sounds with birds chirping.
Wow, that was tedious. I'm definitely not in a relaxed state of mind after that. We recommend you keep the conversation simple and get the users quickly to the delight. Let's take a look at another example that keeps the conversation simple.
Hey Google, talk to Headspace.
Great to hear from you again. Which session would you like today? Wake up, take a moment, or unwind?
Unwind.
So it's the end of the day and time to wind down. So just finding a comfortable place.
Much better. Can we go back? And don't autoplay
Hey Google,
it again.
talk to Headspace.
Thanks. They get the user quickly to where they want to go. In a conversational dialogue, we know users drop off each time another question is asked. So the fewer steps to complete a task, the better. Keep your users engaged by avoiding needless banter. Tip 2, add a persona. We want simple conversations, but users also want to feel connected and engaged with your action. Developing a persona or a personality and incorporating it into your action really brings it to life. Take, for example, a pizza restaurant. There are many types of pizza restaurants. There's that upscale brick oven pizzeria, or that New York walk-up where you can grab a quick slice, and the local beachside locals spot. Each one is going to communicate in a different way, and your action can exemplify this. By defining a thorough persona, you can draw users into your action. We'll do some acting again. Sunil will play the pizza action, and I'll be the user.
Hello, what would you like today?
Pizza.
OK, what toppings would you like to add?
Pretty bland, right? It's fine. But I'm not sure we expressed anything about our brand or who we are. Let's try it again.
Cowabunga, dude. What can I get you?
Pizza.
Great. What flavor do you crave?
Maybe we've taken this one a little far, but you get the idea. Our persona is a local surfer. Personality can't be avoided. It's human nature to attach personality to things, and we're hardwired to look for meaning in the things around us. People will attribute a personality with your action regardless of whether you think about it or not. It's better to control the perception and define it. Well-defined personas also increase the emotional connection. This leads to increased usage, retention, and brand loyalty. Things to think about when you're defining your persona is what state is the user going to be in? Are they looking to relax? Are they excited? And based off of that, what role should your agent play? Looking at these attributes, these are a couple different options. The first might be a teacher, someone who's patient and helpful and encouraging. And then a friend might be playful, casual, and silly. Whereas a helper, you're going to want to be attentive and proactive and succinct. We recommend you define the persona at the design phase and then shape your conversation around it. It can make a big difference.
Tip number 3. Users can be unpredictable. They can use products in ways that we don't always expect. In the case of conversational actions, they might say something that you didn't anticipate. Let's try this dialogue. This time, I'll be the user, and Tori will be the action. I'd like an ice cream cone.
Yummy. What size do you want?
A double.
Sorry. What size do you want? Small, medium, or large?
OK, the grammar was not robust. The action didn't understand a common variation of medium. In this case, I said double. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been to ice cream shops, and you can ask for different sizes in different ways. So you want your grammars to be able to handle all of these different common variations that might come up. Let me show you how you can approach this. Using Dialogflow, there's a simple way to do this. First, training phrases. This is where you can include some of the common different ways somebody might say the same phrase. So, for example, can I have a medium? I'll have 2 scoops. A double, please. You can include all of these different phrases in the training phrase section so that the system will understand that users might ask for things in different ways. The second is synonyms. Let's take another example, rain boots. So there are many different ways somebody might say rain boots. It could be gum boots, galoshes, wellies. You can include all of these different kind of synonyms and variations as part of the interface in Dialogflow so that users will be able to give their responses with these kind of variations. But there's another part. The more examples you give, the better Dialogflow can learn from those examples, because it does have learning capabilities. And then it can account for, it can learn new ways that the user has expressed these same concepts. So more examples, the better. Let's take a look at an action called timeout that illustrates this. Timeout tells you about events in the United Kingdom. On this first screen, timeout is asking for a day you'd like to go out. The user responds with, I don't know. Instead of asking the user again, timeout recognizes the phrase, I don't know, and gives a helpful response. In the second screen, timeout again asks if I want to go out today, tomorrow, or Saturday. The user responded with, excuse me, today, tomorrow, or Sunday. The user responded with Saturday. And again, timeout handled it. Common variations and things outside of what the prompt asked for. And on the right, the user was being a little clever here, and they asked for something funny. Timeout responded with humor, so kind of like an Easter egg. So these are some of the ways to make your actions more robust. But there's more to conversational excellence. Users can still say unexpected things. And when people talk to each other, if the listener doesn't understand the speaker, they work cooperatively to figure it out. They ask for corrections or rewordings or try to give some hints to help move the conversation forward. Let's take a look at an example here.
When is the event?
Tomorrow.
I don't understand. When is the event?
Wednesday.
I don't understand. When is the event?
Wednesday.
I don't understand. When is the event?
Frustrating, but I'm sure you've heard something like this before when you've talked to a computer. This is hopefully not something unfamiliar. The action is repetitive and unhelpful. It gives the same response. It's not noticing that the user is earnestly trying to move the conversation forward. So here's what we recommend. For the initial prompt, you can give that. Now, there's 2 types of errors that you might that we recommend you handle. The first is called no match. This is when the user says something and the action didn't handle it. When this happens, you want to get the user back on track. We recommend the first reprompt to be what's called a rapid reprompt. You give essentially the same response or maybe a slight variation, but don't go too much further than that. And if the user still isn't gives something that you can't handle, here's where we call escalating detail. Make it a little bit more elaborate, perhaps even an example of what something they can say to help move the conversation forward. And after that, stop reprompting. Don't pester the user. We find this sequence works very well. Now, there's another type of error. It's called no input. This means The user didn't say anything, or maybe the system didn't hear what the user said. Perhaps they were thinking about what they wanted to say, or they got confused by the prompt, weren't sure how to respond. Like No Match, we recommend this 3-stage reprompting to help the user along. And with these 6 reprompts, you're well on your way to build a helpful conversational experience that keeps the user on track. Let's see how to code this. In Dialogflow, you create what's called a fallback intent. Then, in your webhook code, you simply create an array with the 3 reprompts, add a counter, and some logic so you return the right prompt. And that's it. Great design delights users and keeps them coming back. Remember, keep your dialogue short. Include a persona. Make robust grammars that handle common variations and synonyms. Handle errors like no match and no input.
So now you have the design basics. Let's make it more fun and personalized. Tip 5, evolve with your user. When you have a follow-up conversation with someone you know, do you introduce yourself again? If you know their address, do you ask it again? Same goes for actions. Be there with help and options when the user needs it, but default to the simplest and most personalized conversation for your user. So here's a horoscope action, Terra Horoscopo. It's in Portuguese, and if you don't speak Portuguese and you don't happen to have Google Translate handy, let me tell you what's happening. The first time the user launches the action, it asks for the horoscope sign. On subsequent launches, it doesn't and simply reuses the previous answer. This is great. Something as simple as that can create a much better experience for your user. Another iteration on this could be when the user invokes the action, you just give them their horoscope right away. There are plenty of examples of good personalization. If you're a food action, you can remember that I'm a vegetarian and focus on those choices. If you're a fitness action, you can remember workouts, sounds, durations that the user likes and use those as the defaults. Now we'll take a look at the code. With the User Info API, you can get the user's name, anonymized user ID, and more. You can use this to know if it's the same user on subsequent invocations. There are also more robust solutions using OAuth for logged-in experiences. So here in the code, you can see we're checking if we've seen the user before. If we haven't, we do the introduction. If we have, we attempt to retrieve the horoscope sign and then continue on with the conversation. What we want you to remember from evolving with the users is 1, get rid of the intro if the user is familiar with it, and 2, become more personalized as you learn about them. Don't keep asking for things that you already know.
We've all heard computer-generated text-to-speech. It's the technology that takes text and converts into speech. And Google offers some really nice text-to-speech. But do you know what's even better? Media. Here's 2 tips for the price of 1 to make your actions sound awesome. First, the Media Response API. This lets you include media clips in your action. Suppose I'm building an action that plays famous speeches. I can call this API to include the actual audio, and some images, and with some controls. Let's give it a listen.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
OK, great. Great way to include a little bit of media inside of your action. Using the API is straightforward. Just give the URL to an audio file, titles, some images, and then hand it to Actions on Google to play the rest. It's a great way to bring your audio content to your users. The second way is through SSML. Let's say I'm trying to create a spooky atmosphere for my action. Let's listen to what this sounds like with plain text-to-speech.
Come in. Welcome to the terrifying world of the imagination.
Tori, did that sound creepy?
I'm shaking in my boots.
Okay, didn't convince her. All right, let's try to change it and see how the voice sounds if I manipulate the voice a little bit.
Come in. Welcome to the terrifying world of the imagination.
Spooky now?
You're getting there.
Okay, all right. We slowed the voice down, kind of better, not there yet. Now, let's add some sound effects.
Come in. Welcome to the terrifying world of the imagination.
I like it.
All right, there we go. I got the thumbs up. What a difference. Now we're talking. Now, I'm going to play that for you one more time, but this time I'm going to show you the various tracks that were used to compose this sound. Let's take a look.
Come in. Welcome to the terrifying world of the imagination.
All right, what we did here is use two features of SSML, par and prosody. Prosody lets you fine-tune how the computer speaks by changing the pitch, speaking rate, and volume. Par is something unique to Actions on Google. It lets you play multiple sound layers, including sound effects, background audio, and mix that with your text-to-speech. With that, you can make great sounds and an atmosphere for your action. To further help you make a great audio environment for your sound, we have a sound library with over 1,000 sounds, including ambient sounds, sports, voices, Foley, and many more. We encourage you to include sounds in your actions. Tip number 7, adjust to your device. Earlier at I/O, we mentioned that the assistant is on over 500 million devices. Smart speakers, phones, watches, headphones, Chromebooks, cars, TVs. And with the Assistant SDK, device makers are embedding the assistant in more devices all the time. When designing for multiple devices, there's a spectrum of capabilities to consider. Sometimes it's voice only, like a Google Home. And with new smart screens, there's a mix of visual and touch. Sometimes the same device falls on different parts of the spectrum depending upon the user's context, like they're driving or the volume is muted. So these are the things you need to take into consideration when designing for these. Let's take an example of a surf report. On a smart speaker like a Google Home, the report needs to be presented with just speech. So in this example, the whole interaction is verbal and through audio. Now that same one on the right is with a screen. Here, the audio or the verbal presentation is abridged, but then now there's a visual presentation that goes along with it. And we encourage you to use these rich visual presentations on devices with screens. And even on the bottom right, you can see that the choices are presented as suggestion chips, so the user can tap on them instead of having to speak on a device with a screen. And implementing such logic is straightforward, using Surface Capabilities APIs and some conditional logic. Now, there's so much more about this topic. Fortunately, there's a whole talk about it Wednesday at 11:30 called Design Actions for the Google Assistant, Beyond Smart Speakers to Phones and Smart Displays. A great way to see if your actions are working are putting them in the hands of users. But you might want to try things out with a smaller audience before you launch to a bigger audience. Now, we just released a new tool that lets you test with smaller audiences, and there's two options with it. You can do an alpha release. Your action goes through a limited review, And this is great to get early feedback on your action. Give it out to a small test group. And one of the other advantages of the alpha releases is that the review process is much shorter, within hours. So that way you can just make a fix, test it with some users, and iterate very, very quickly and get that feedback that you need so that when you're releasing to a larger audience, you've gotten through all the bugs and all the design issues. The second option is doing a beta release. This is intended when you're near feature complete and you have a stable version or a near stable version. Test this with a wider audience. Now, beta goes through the full typical approval for actions, but there's an additional advantage with this. You can control when you take an action from beta to public. So that way, if you're trying to time a release based on your marketing considerations, you can keep it in beta, and then when you're ready for it to go live, flip the switch and make it go live, live to the public. Now, after you've built your action and tested it and launched it, it's great to see what happened. How many users are coming back? Or how many users are there? How many are coming back? What problems, if any, are they encountering? For traditional metrics like traffic, errors, and retention, there are existing analytics views you can use to see these. You can find the two on the left on the Actions on Google console. Retention, like a cohort analysis, is available through another tool called Chatbase. Chatbase is a tool that you can integrate with your action where you can get deeper conversational analytics. And speaking about some things that are conversational and analytic, let's take a look at something that's particular to conversational analytics. And this is called a session flow. Here you can see the pathways a user takes most often. The green paths are the ones that your action handled. The red paths are not handled. So in this example, book a hotel, when a user says book a hotel, that was handled. But when a user says feedback, it wasn't handled. Now, when we talked about no-match errors before in the robust grammars tip, here is where you can see how often these no-matches happen and where you can figure out how to prioritize addressing these. Both Dialogflow and Chatbase include a session flow view. And if you need to drill down, you can see transcripts, including the individual steps a user went. So you can see what led up to a potential problem, so you can try to address that. To recap, enhance your actions to take them to the next level and increase the engagement. Personalize it to the user. Add sounds. Account for actions running on different types of devices. For example, some with screens, some not. Test it with smaller audiences, and then when you launch, use the analytics tools here to see what the users are doing.
So now you've built your awesome app. You want to engage your users and reach many more. Tip 10, re-engage your users. During normal interactions with your action, you can ask users to opt in to receive updates using two subscription models. The first is daily updates, where Google pulls an update at a time specified by the user. The second is push notifications, where the action can push updates when appropriate. These notifications work on the phone even if you don't have an Android app installed. And now, with cross-surface notifications coming to the Google Assistant, you'll be able to reach your users on speakers, smart displays, and other Google devices. Here's an example of tube status. This can keep you up to date on your commute conditions. Here is an example of the user configuring the daily update. Here's what it looks like when they're getting the update, as well as a notification when there are severe delays. Great way to re-engage. If you want the user to get daily updates, you can actually set this up using the Actions console. The second way is in your webhook in your code. Here, you create a new register update object. You can put in arguments, here, horoscope sign, and then the frequency. Other examples of daily updates are a tip of the day or a surf report. Now, notifications and updates can be a great way to re-engage with your users, but they can also be really annoying. You have to be careful to make it relevant. So use personalization. Results for the user's favorite club instead of the whole league. Be descriptive. Users will receive the title in the notification, so describe the content they're receiving, and don't just list the name of the action. And third, don't spam your users. Make sure the information is relevant to them, or don't do it. Tip 11, make your action easy to discover. We're working hard to make sure all great actions are discoverable. And there are 3 main ways to get discovered. The first is the Assistant Explorer directory. The second is when the user is talking to the assistant, make sure you come up as an option. And the third is action links, which are hyperlinks to your action, which you can add to any surface. The best way to ensure you're discovered, make it good. We check each action, and the higher the quality, the return rate, health, and ratings, the more likely we'll highlight your action. Follow the design principles in the developer docs to help guide you. We have some great stuff out there. There are also several talks at I/O that will help. Here's the Assistant Explorer directory. It's available on the web at assistant.google.com/explore and in an app in both Android and iOS. The directory is very important because we see that 30% of our third-party actions are getting discovered through it. So when a user is browsing, you want to make sure you get discovered. The first browsing option are contextual suggestions. These relevant suggestions are based on the user's context, such as the time of day or location. The second is dynamic categories. These are things like what's new, what's trending, what's popular, and now we have editorial picks. This is a new feature highlighting high-quality actions through visual campaigns. You now know that high quality is the key to being featured in the Assistant directory. To trigger more naturally in conversation, you use built-in intents. This is currently in preview. It allows actions to trigger for relevant queries that are more general. These built-in intents provided common taxonomy for actions across all Google surfaces. Google Assistant parses the user query and passes it as structured data so developers don't have to. Using these general intents is much more natural for users, and this way, users don't have to use your action name. A couple examples of built-in intents are tell a joke or start a calming activity. In Dialogflow, you can select the built-in intent you'd like to be associated with, and then add in parameters that can be passed into your action. Today, we're making the first set of these intents available, so you can give the assistant a deeper understanding of what your action can do, and we'll be rolling out hundreds more in the coming months. So the third way to get discovered is action links. They're hyperlinks that point directly into your action. They make your actions discoverable from any platform or surface, and they allow users to engage directly with your action, irrespective of how they found your link. The links can be added anywhere: websites, social campaigns, and more. It's really simple to set up action links. You need to go into the Actions console, publish a URL link, and give it a title, and then share away. A final tip: be helpful everywhere your users are. We're launched in more than 25 locales in 16 languages. we recommend engaging with this global audience as soon as possible. Flixbus is a bus company, and it's available in multiple countries and languages. Here, you can see identical action screens in multiple languages: English, French, and German. And here, we're going to show you how to efficiently localize your action using a third-party localization library. The first thing to do is create a locales directory and a resource file or translation file for each locale. In this example, it's en-us.json. That stands for English, United States. Then, within the file, you create a constant for each string in your action, along with the string. Then, for each additional language, you create a new JSON file and use the same constants, but have translated strings. There are many translation services that can help with this. And then in your webhook, you use the I18N node library to do the hard work. Here, you're going to configure the I18N object. You're going to set the locales you want to support, where the translation files are located, and your default locale. Then, when the conversation starts, you're going to set that specific user's locale in the I18N object. And finally, throughout the conversation, you use these constants instead of conditional statements. This greatly simplifies the complexity of supporting multiple languages. We want to ensure that the work that you have put into designing and enhancing your action pays off. These tips will help ensure you acquire as many users as possible and keep them coming back for more.
There are so many more resources here at I/O to help you build great actions and learn more about these tips. Look for sessions marked for Assistant on the agenda, but let me highlight a few for you. We have sessions that talk about how to design for smart displays, Android, and games. You can learn to enhance your action with transactional capabilities, a persona, and to personalize. And there's sessions on how to set up the alpha and beta releases that we talked about, and then build and grow your user base. Finally, we have office hours and a sandbox where you can talk to members of the team.
My team works with hundreds of partners globally, helping them create better assistive experiences. We've seen a lot of these challenges, and this list is created from what we've learned. We hope that by sharing these 12 tips, we have given you a head start in creating great actions. I look forward to seeing how you innovate in the space and create cool assistive actions.